I'm picking this one because it's fairly self-contained right now, okay? Now, I don't care if you use the ones that I pulled. You can pull your own. But what I did was I also put, because most of this type of inking is done in comic books, but I also put, hang on. This Gibson one in there too, if you're not in the comic book thing or whatever. To me, it doesn't really matter. It's the same process. But, okay. And I'm going to go over this briefly, and then I'm going to go over brushes, okay? And so you're going to have two things I'm going to expect by probably Monday. This, and you guys will probably go through it pretty quick. And then what I'm going to talk about after this was just a lot of brush information, okay? That make sense? Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do here is we have this layer, which is a background layer, which means we can't really do a whole lot with it, okay? So I'm going to double click this, and I'm going to call this ink drawing. Why am I doing that? Because I want to clearly know what layer my ink drawing's on, because it matters. And then I'm going to go, okay, then I'm going to take this layer, and I'm going to go and I'm putting it on multiply. Multiply is going to be really important for you with this kind of thing, because what multiply does in this context is it just gets rid of all the white, okay? So I'm going to make basically a sandwich here. So I'm going to go make a new layer, and I'm going to call this color. And what I usually do, and this one's got to be on top for now. And what I usually do is I go right here to this little lock icon, and I lock that layer because I don't want to paint on that layer. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me get okay, so, and you can do this with a mouse. You don't have to do it. Again, any of you guys who are going through this, you know, further and further along, you're going to need, at some point, get a tablet, all right? And again, it doesn't have to be a Cintiq. The Cintiqs are super expensive, I think. The one, I think I told you guys, the one that they gave me, I didn't even know it. The mobile one, I think, that's like a $3,500 thing. And anyway, I don't think they're really that valuable, but whatever. I mean, they're valuable, but whatever. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off just by going, I could do this a bunch of different ways. So let's just look at this real quick. I'm going to go, I could come in here and go, you know, because obviously this thing is this Hellboy thing. So that gives me a theme color-wise right off the bat, okay? Let me get my toolbar over here. And I'm going to go in. I'm going to do it two different ways real quick. So this one's transparent to color, or colored transparent. Oops, hang on. Okay, so that, just so you know, this, I just put, I don't know what that was, by the way, hang on. Oh, that's weird, hang on. Oh, that's why. Look up here, you guys, by the way, there's these let me turn this off for a second. There's these gradient buttons right here. I forgot to talk about those. So this one right here is your standard one, the one on the far left. So if I make a gradient, it's just going to do that, right? But if I go, let's try this one. This one is, I think, sort of a pyramid idea, like the top of a pyramid. This one is a, I'd have to do that contain. This one goes both sides. You can see it's fading on this side and this side. And then this one, I don't even know what this one is. This one's circular. Yeah, it's a star pattern, okay? Make sense? So if you start making a gradient and it starts doing funky stuff like mine just did, check up here. And if you just want a regular gradient, it's that first one on the left. So now let's go back over here. Turn this back on. Make sure I'm on my color layer. And I'm going to go, oops. Again, this is black and white now because I got to go to image mode, and it's in grayscale. So I'm going to change it to RGB. And I don't want to merge. So there. And you can see what it's doing. It's taking the white out of the equation, okay? So it's just makes all the white transparent. Now, we kind of did the same thing yesterday with the channel selection. Usually, I just do it this way. Hang on. Okay, does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I think, is I'm going to, now another thing I could do, I could just fill it, which is probably how I would start, and then, or I could, and I might do this too. Okay, so there's a bunch of ways to do this. Like, I like to, if I have this background solid color, which is basically how I paint, I don't care if it's oil or digital or whatever, I usually put an overall wash down. But I might come in here and go, I'm going to save that background and make another one. Oops. And I'm going to go, I'm just going to call this color 2. This is my second layer. And I might come in here now and get a brush. Let's see what this brush looks like. I'm going to get a cooler color. Let's try this. It's not too bad. Let me get a better brush. Hang on, I got to calibrate my stupid Wacom. Okay. Now, okay, so I got to immediately go, the light is coming from, and don't overcomplicate the lighting, you guys. If you're new to this, don't overcomplicate it, because it's going to get, it'll get away from you. Just pick a light. This has already got a light source pick, which is going this way, okay? Because all these highlights are on that side, basically, okay? Now I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to go kind of washy here. I'm going to put a little bit of cools over on this side. Maybe on this side of them. And I'm just starting to try and get some idea of going warm, cool here. I might go a little lighter. It's a little better. Now, here's the other thing that I want you guys to understand. When you're doing this kind of, there's a reason why that they do this inked, this super bold, inked out drawing. I could probably blindfold myself and color this and it would look okay, okay? Because that line quality or that bold graphic shades are going to hold this thing together like cement, okay? It's kind of hard to screw this up unless you totally just go completely. Again, I could probably blindfold myself, have 3 colors in my palette, and I could probably make this look okay, especially after I unblindfolded myself, I could fix it. So the beauty of this is I can come in here and I'm going to say that there's a cool, again, I'm doing that warm cool thing. And I'm going to put a little over here. And you can see how loose I'm being. Why? Because I'm behind that super dense ink layer. And we're going to take this further and further as we go along, okay? Into different places, this idea, okay? Where the value is holding everything together. I'm going to put a little over here. Because this stuff's all facing towards this, the cool a little bit. And also, by the way, some of this stuff I'm going to fake a little bit because this is a totally fantastic thing. This doesn't exist, okay? Now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to get my brush and make it bigger. And I think I'm going to say that the light's up here, so I'm going to go a little hotter with the light. And I'm going to say my light source maybe is coming from up here, which means, oops, my light change. How did that happen? Wait a minute. I'm on. I don't know what happened there. That's weird. Okay, my brush has changed somehow, and I'm not sure why. Hang on. Oh, that's why. Let's go back here. Okay. So what I want to do is start getting a little bit of a washier background. Maybe I'll pull a little more of this over here. Being really loose here. And then I'm going to take one of my smudge brushes. So let's go here. Again, I want to use this one. And I want to get these to look a little more paint strokey. Okay? And I'm going to go back to my brush. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit here. Now, maybe he's also getting lit from below. I'm going to pull a little bit of that lighter value up in here. I'm going to light the bottom. I'm going to light all this, actually. And his face. And then I'm going to go up here, grab this color again. And I'm going to go a little hotter. Okay, hang on. You guys hear me? Okay, every now and then my computer will come up and go, you have a bad connection right now, just, and then it goes away and everything's fine. That's why I always ask you guys that. Okay, so I'm going to go a little hotter here. More yellows. I'm going to say the light source is coming up here. Why am I doing that? Because it's going red to a little hotter orange to the source of the light, which is brighter and orangey, right? I don't always want to go to white because then I lose color. So I'm going to do that. So that's coming in, and let's go back to my blender. Again, because I want to get some washiness against all this. And then maybe I'll put some more of this over here. Same thing. And then this could also get hotter down here. With this, I'm just going to push it up a little bit. I want to keep some color in there, though. So maybe this is getting bottom lit, so I want to make it a little stronger down here. This little patch here looks like it should be more. Yeah, I'm going to say that this is going to be a little more reddish. I'm going to pop that hand out of there this way. Is this all making sense so far?
Yeah, my quick question for in terms of light sources, should there only be one? Or
I would say in this one, yes. It looks like it's getting a light from the upper right to me. So this is already sort of determined, okay? But what's not determined are temperatures and all that kind of stuff, okay?
Okay.
Now, I'm going to go here and say that this stuff here is more brassy. So I'm going to go up and pull. I'll start with a warm yellow. Like this actually is pretty good. So I'm going to kind of start hitting some of this, not all of it. That's not brass, that's probably leather. That little thing on his belt. I'm going to start making some of this stuff a little more lit. Like this could be catching a lot of light. And by the way, you guys, as I'm doing this, if you have questions, throw them out there, okay? And then what I could do is I could go a little hotter on this yellow. So if you look at this yellow, it's a pretty dull yellow. That's what I want to start with. So then I'm going to go here and maybe push that a lot brighter. I want to make sure it stays warm though. And then I'm going to start lighting some of this. There you go. So this to get, now what am I doing here? Instead of just going to white, which is what people always do, I'm going to a brighter yellow because that's really what's going to happen. And then at some point, and I'd probably still put a touch of yellow in this, just a hair. Actually, I do this. I take the same yellow, and I go here, and I push it. Still keep some yellow in there, but push it whiter. And then I could put like little highlights and things on things. This is probably just going to go red, but I'm gonna dull it out a little bit, make it a little more browny on one side. Maybe I'll use some of that down here. Now, another thing that people like to do is they might come in here and get the lasso tool and go, okay, I'm going to sort of lasso out these shapes. If you hold shift after you get done, you can do another shape. And I could do this. I could do this. Just sort of block out those shapes. And then I'm going to go a little hotter on my orange just so you can see this a little bit. Hang on. And I could do this a couple ways. I could either do it maybe with an airbrush. Hang on, let's go to, I'm gonna go to my gradient. And I can start to light them like that in like shapes. You see that all the time in comic books, okay? But then I might come in here again and go back to my, where'd it go? Oh, it's in here. Back to my smudge tool. I'm gonna get a way smaller take on this because I don't want the bottom maybe to be as hard edge, so I'm gonna soften up just that edge, just this edge, and maybe the hair up there. So does that make sense? Like you could kind of go in, and then you make smaller and smaller selections. So I could go. Hold shift, make another shape. Hold shift, make another shape. And then I could go a little hotter again. Back to my gradient. Oops. Sort of start doing the same thing again. Back to my smudge. Oops. I'm going to slightly knock that down a little bit. That make sense? How I'm building this?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, now here is what I just saw something online, and I think this is important. Because I see a lot of this stuff with the pen tool or with the polygon lasso tool and stuff like that, where people are like, it's more of a trick, okay? It's a good trick here and there, like maybe silhouettes and things like that, okay? It's not a good thing when you, hang on. It's not a good thing when you use that right tool for the right job. So I just saw a student posted something online and they were drawing something organically and they were doing it with that trick, and I know who that student is, and they're getting a lot better, but their drawing skills and painting skills really aren't there yet. They're getting better, but they're relying on that trick over and over again, and they were drawing something organic, and it's like, that trick does not work for this. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, right tool for the right job. Because I see that and I go, can you not see that doesn't look like what you're trying to do? And that all the changes are too abrupt. And what bothers me about it is just from a basic painting perspective, knock in the silhouette, dude. And then if you want to like knock out a plane on that silhouette or something, that's fine. But the whole thing's been unified because you started with the silhouette, okay? And what bothers me about that is that I know that they learned that from somebody who doesn't know how to paint. They just dick around with digital tools all the time, and that you can't do that. You got to know how the stuff works. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Which is why I'm saying, get a sketchbook, draw all the time, get a little watercolor book, cheap watercolor set, paint all the time, and just go for it and start learning, okay? All right, so I'd probably have to start dancing this light around more. Hang on. Because now, this is a really hot light now. Now, the other way I could have done that is instead of pulling the gradient, I could have just done the upper part and just use a real soft airbrush. Does that make sense? And got the same effect. I'd be a little more controlled, but that's fine. So now I'm going, okay, I got this hotter color. Got this hotter color here. So now I got to dance some of that around. I got to get some of that going over here. I don't like this hard edge right here. Now, another thing is this where it goes from dark or from warm to cool. I could probably go desaturate this a little bit. Let's see. And I can start to come in here and put a little core shadow in there to separate those two warm, cool transition. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, what I want you guys to understand here is when you were like in basic drawing and all that kind of stuff, and you have to draw cylinders and they talk about core shadows and all that stuff. And when I took that class 100 years ago, I was like, I don't get this at all. Well, this glove right here, whatever, what is it? It's a cylinder, right? So as it turns, it's going to get a core right there, and I can take advantage of that because it helps turn it more, and it also gives a clean transition between the warm and the cool. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here once again. I'm going to just here and there, I want to soften that edge up a little. That's pretty good right there. All right, does that make sense?
Yes.
So, and then, you know, I'm starting to go, I think I want, this is starting to feel flamey to me, which is an accident, but I like, again, I like happy accident. So I'm going to go a little hotter here.
So Mike, with the cylinder, you're using the smudge tool to soften it up a little bit, correct?
Yeah, and by the way, you got to be really selective with hard and soft edges. There's a reason why I'm constantly talking about hard and soft edges, okay? You cannot make a good painting unless you understand hard and soft edges, okay? It's just not possible. So you have to think about what's casting a hard shadow. A cheek is never going to cast a hard shadow. And then you have to think about, just from an artistic perspective, how you soften an edge and how, you know, all that kind of stuff. That's all. The reason I talk about this constantly is a lot of you guys will just go into digital painting, and then you're being taught by somebody who's only a digital painter, and then everybody comes out of that with no brushwork whatsoever. And it really bothers me. And it's like, you need to understand, and the way we're working in here, when we start getting into more painting and stuff, all of it's coming from traditional paintings. That's where I come from. And then you're applying the same thing. So if you want to do something that looks really painterly, which most people do, but you don't understand brushwork, and you don't understand color, and you don't understand core shadows and form and all this kind of stuff, I don't know how you're going to make a good painting. What you're going to do is you're going to start reverting back to tricks, okay? Photo bashing. I've seen this a million times, and I know I'm on a tear here, but it's important. I'm a big fundamental guy. Like, the only stuff you're ever going to access is fundamentals. Everything I'm talking about in this little illustration is fundamentals. That's it, okay? You're going to be accessing those. You're just going to get better and better at them, okay? And what I'm seeing is people go, you know, they want to show me their digital paintings, and I go, that's photo bash. Well, you said digital painting. Oh, turn the page, or, you know, whatever. Oh, that's photo bash. That's photo bash. That's photo bash. It's like, you didn't learn how to paint. You learned a bunch of tricks, and everybody knows it. Okay, does that make sense? So, point being, know your stuff. Know it from the ground up. Okay, because it's also a lot more satisfying as an artist when you go, I don't care if I got a watercolor set, an oil set, a digital tools, a this, a that, I can make an image. Period. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take this smudge thing again. I'm going to go a little bigger, because this is going to break up the edges in it. See that? So now I can start to get a little bit of a flamey idea here. I feel like I need some more reds in there. I can even get some of these cools in here probably. Did you guys ever watch the campfire? You'll see little flickers of like purpley blue and stuff in there, okay? So I'm always looking at that stuff. And I think down here, I'm going to go really crazy down here. Now, with this kind of an image, you might as well go crazy. This is a fantastic environment. You can see I'm just sampling colors here, right? Now I'm going to go to a really, hang on. And again, back to my smudge. a little smaller now. You know, and then I've got to transition it. I'm going to go here and go to a much yellower orange so it transitions into the reds. More like that. Now the other thing I usually do, and I would do this probably on a later layer, because at some point I'm going to probably need to go on top of all this, but we want to stay off that ink layer. Never touch your ink layer. Now I'm just making these decisions on the fly, obviously. Now I could get a little bit of a backlight right there on the top of his head, maybe. And then I'm going to, I don't know if I like that. Get rid of that. I'm going to go back over here and get a little more of this and light up his tail a little bit. A little much. I'm going to pull it down a little bit. And then I'm going to start going in here and making sure that everything's coherent from a lighting perspective. And then I usually do weird things like I might go put another layer over this. Maybe sample this purple and then go and this is all a crapshoot. I'm just seeing if anything happens. And so far, I don't like any of them. I'm going to try one more thing. It's kind of interesting, but I don't like it enough. Nah, I don't like any of those. Okay, so I'll get rid of that. Okay, does that all make sense so far?
Yeah, yes.
Now, what I'd probably start doing is, like one of the things I would do on it, I might do it on this layer, but no, I'd probably do it on another layer. Now, if I am going to work over this, then I want to put the layer up on top. So I've created a sandwich. I've got my ink drawing, which I never touch, on multiply, and then anything I want to do over the top of it, I do, on another layer over it. If I wanted to get, let's try a couple things here. Like one thing I always do if it's got a flamey environment is I might find a really, like this color. I'm gonna go a little bigger. And I want to put like embers and stuff. I want to go really saturated on this red. I don't know if it'll show up. And I'd probably vary these a little bit, probably still come back in and reshape them a little. I might just use the eraser for that. I'm just going to reshape them so they're not too uniform. And I probably want to get a couple of these in front of him, maybe, like crossing over. Okay. Okay. So I might want to get some of these sort of crossing in front of him here and there. Oh. Not there. I'd have to make them sort of flow, some way. They'd be really cool back here probably. I could probably use some of the red ones here. Yeah. So on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like those embers. They're cool.
Yeah, because if I'm going to do, if you're going to do, I think this is important. If you're going to do light, or yeah, light, you got to do dark. Okay, so I'm going to take this, desaturate it. It's too bright. Maybe a little darker. And then, again, I probably said this before, but I just sort of tend to think hot, hot, hotter. So it's kind of like what we did. Remember yesterday we did the smoke? You guys remember that?
Yes.
Same idea, right? So we're going to go. But what I'm doing is I'm just throwing down the color and the value. Okay. Then I'm going, then I'm going to take that and go hotter, which is a little more orangey. And you can, you can complicate this up even more if you want. Oops. And we haven't even done anything yet. It's starting to look flame-like. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
And then right here is sort of your hottest point, right? And again, I start thinking about my edges. And again, I like this one. So I'm going to leave it a little bigger so it starts to break up the edge like in a nice flamey way. You see that?
Oh yeah, it blends it nice.
Yeah, so I don't want the same blend everywhere, but I'm going to start here. Okay, and then, I could probably get a little tiny bit of blue in there. I probably don't need it. Now, what's going to really make that work, number one, you have it on dark. And then I'm going to take this again. I'm going to get a really hot color. And I want to, oops. So anyway, I would do my embers coming off of this. Various degrees of hotness, coming off. I'll probably go back to my eraser and oops. Where am I at? I'm on the wrong layer, but that's all right. I'd reshape these embers a little bit if I needed to. And they're on the wrong layer, so I'm just going to paint over them. And I just make sure that they're shaped nice. And that they flow out right and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes, that looks good.
Now, the second part of this equation is that if I had something here, and I know I'm getting into the weeds here, but so what? Oops. If I had a structure here, and let's just say, let's fill this with the same color. Then I'm going to go to levels and darken it. Now I get a structure over here. And now I'm going to go, let's say this is a box. It's going to be a real half-assed box. So this could be a building, could be whatever. I want to fill it with maybe a lighter value of this, maybe. Just a hair, because I'm going to change this anyway. But maybe I take my, I'll take this color maybe, and go back to my gradient. Oops. I don't know why this isn't switching. Too much. I'm going to go here. I'm going to actually put this on its own layer so I can just do this. And point being is that this is now going to get affected by that light, maybe like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it reflects the fire.
Yeah, so whenever you're working on anything, and again, it could be what we worked on with the movie poster thing or any of that stuff, if there's light in there, you want to bounce it around and it pulls everything together and makes it feel more like everything's in the same environment.
Right.
Okay? And what I'm trying to do here is break this down simply, okay? Because I see a lot of very complex explanations of this stuff, and a lot of it's common sense. I mean, once you know it, it's common sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And then I'd probably want to get a little bit of, because I want overlap, I'd probably want to get a few of these embers crossing over in front of this. Because then again, I got some overlap. And I'm starting, you know, it's starting to feel like they're in the same environment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And what I want you to understand is what I started with. I started with a silhouette, and I went inside the silhouette again, and went inside the silhouette again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to see that theme over and over again. So let's get rid of all this. Okay. All right. That all makes sense, correct?
Yes, it does.
And then, so this guy, what I'd have to start doing with this guy now, start, you know, get it a little more pulled together. It's a little piecemeal right now. Part of that is that I need to go in when you do this and block out your warm, cool, or whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you know, let me make sure I'm on my color layer again. I probably need a little more of this interspersed in here. Oops, I don't want to do. You know, and then I start thinking about the surfaces. That hand is like stone or something. Not going to be all that reflective. It's going to be more absorbent. But it could get a little bit of highlights, but it's not going to go to a screaming highlight. What people will do is they'll come in here and they'll go, and they'll do that, you know, and it's like, it's not glass, and it's not a jewel or something, okay? But down here, I can do some of that, because there's a bunch of like jewelry and things like that, yeah, catching all this hot light, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, so there's all these different, hang on. There's all these different ways of doing this. Now I could come in here and sort of highlight this key light on the side of the edge light. If I can find the right color. I want a little more color in that. Is there enough color in it? You know, and I could edge light this, and this guy could really edge light. I could come in here and, you know, he could get a lot of light right there where it's getting near that light source, and down here maybe, and here, and on his hand. You know, and I could probably edge light him pretty good. Even up here, I might be able to, I don't know if this will work. Nah, it doesn't really work. So let's go. Yeah. Still a little too bright. So I might put this on its own layer and knock down the opacity. I could just go up here to my brush tool. Let me get rid of this. It's too bright. Down here, I could get away with it, not up there. This is getting bottom lit from the bottom. And then again, I got to come in here and either lighten my opacity on my brush, which is probably what I would do, and just go, that's just a little too intense. Then I could come under here on another layer, this layer, and I could start just a little bit. Let me get rid of all that edge light because it's too much. Yes. Let's go here. Shoot it. Oh, down here, I could go on the layer above, lighten my, knock down my opacity, it's already knocked down, sample this color, and maybe just put a hint of that reflected light into the shadows. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. You see, that's nice. It's nice to get some of that, the heavy black knock back. And then, you know, if I wanted to, I could come up here and I would do this again. Let's do it the way I said. Let's do it this way. Maybe there's a crazy light source up here. I'm going to go to render, lens flare. I'm going to put it right there. And this one I'm going to make kind of a nutty. I'll do that. Hit OK. I'm going to go Command Z out of it. Put a layer over this whole thing. Fill it with black. Filter, lens flare. There it is. And then go screen. And I could start getting that kind of thing going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that looks cool.
And then, you know, again, I could go in here, go to my hue saturation and play around with, like, go through the spectrum. Like, that's kind of cool like that. Now this is on top, so it's gonna blur over my, or roll over my, even my ink, which sometimes is kind of cool. Like maybe there, or I don't know. I kind of like it really intense like that. But then I want to probably knock it down a little bit, knock the opacity down a little, maybe like that.
So
You know, and then that makes me go, okay, what about if I go off of that? Take this sample, this color here, because I don't want it to, as intense. I want it right there, maybe. I want to put this on another layer. And then again, maybe come to my gradient again. Oops. And then I want to go, okay, where should this sit? Maybe it's back there, filter, blur. Maybe there. And then again, I can go through the color spectrum and see if I see something I like better. Like I kind of like that better. Pretty good, yeah, I don't want that. I like that a little better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
yeah, Mike. So you're adding the lens flare as like the cherry on top. That's what you you're using the painting first, and then you're just adding on top of it with the lens flare, correct?
And by the way, that's a good point. Like when you're building this, build a good solid big shape to small shape idea. If you jump into details too fast, it won't work, okay? Has to be big shapes to smaller shapes, big ideas to smaller ideas, okay? There's no such thing as detail. What that is usually is smaller and smaller shapes, okay? And then when I got it, and you know, I'd obviously have worked on this more by now, but I would have, and then this could even go maybe back another one. Let's see. Yeah, I like it better back there. That makes more sense. Then I can do all my fun little things that I want to do. You know, my super hot lights and my edge lights and all that kind of stuff. You know, I can do all that stuff. But if you try and run to that, because we all have some part of this process usually that we like. Like when I'm over, when I do like pin drawings of like, if I go and draw like mechanical stuff, like at March Field, or I just went out to the Patton Museum out in the desert, and I'm drawing tanks and stuff like that. I usually use pen, and I draw a certain way, and I love to hatch it and all that kind of stuff, or maybe going with a marker. But I have to wait to get to there. I can't start jumping into the part that I like doing until the thing is built, and then I can have a blast with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do not jump ahead. And the other thing is, I was hired as a foundational teacher. Everything I'm teaching you is basically fundamentals and stuff like that. And I get a lot of people and they go, well, that class seems more advanced. And it's like, it's everything the way I do it is fundamental. Okay. At least I hope it is. And I hope it's understandable. I'm trying to make it understandable. And I'm also trying to demystify it. Okay. Like this kind of comic book coloring. When I see it, I'm like, I can do that in an hour. You know what I mean? And not that it's not super cool. It is. But the inking in this case is what's the hard part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If somebody gives you this, if you screw this up, man, it's on you, you know, because it's like this person is a kick-ass inker, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some of these inking guys, by the way, they're not great at drawing. They're great at inking, okay? There's a penciler and then there's an inker. Is that okay? So does this all make sense?
I just have a question about the lens flare. So you put it on a black background, you put a black background, and then you put the lens flare so you can see it.
Okay, I put it on its own layer.
Right.
Because lens flare does not give you an opportunity to work non-destructively, which I don't like, okay? Because this lens flare thing, man, I told you guys before, half the time I go, ugh, that's just too much. And then I come back the next day and I don't want that stuck on my layer, because usually you have to work on the layer, you know, that you're working on. So if I make an empty layer, fill it with black, or first I do the lens flare just like I was going to do it, and then I undo it. I Command Z out of it. But what it does is it drops it into the memory right here. So right here, like the last thing I did was Gaussian blur. It remembers that, okay? So then I go to another layer, I put a black on it, and then I just go back and I drop right here and it'll say lens flare, and I just drop it and it goes pink and it drops it on that black layer. Then when I put it on screen, it's just on its own layer. It's sitting where I want it to sit, and it's non-destructive. I can get rid of it if I don't like it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so the black just goes away, like.
When I put it on screen.
Okay.
When I put this overlay right here on screen.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. Which, by the way, remember that now, when you have something on a dark background, you're like, man, I just want that lit up part or something, and you can just go screen. And bam, it does the same thing kind of as Multiply does with the white. It makes the white go transparent, and screen makes the black go transparent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And these overlays, and again, this is probably just my brain. I use certain ones a lot, and then a lot of them I use randomly. And the ones I use randomly, I don't sit around and try and figure out exactly what they do, but I do want to know what this one does. Like this kind of stuff I want to catalog, because it's like, I'm going to use that all the time, especially the multiply thing. Because it just, you know, if you have a pencil drawing, go in there and level it out and get rid of the schmutzy gray stuff, and then boom, put it on multiply, and you just do a quick color thing on it, right?
Yeah.
So I used to do stuff all the time where I'd have an idea at lunch. I'd have a meeting at 2 and I'd be at lunch and I'd go, oh, this is cool. And I don't know, I might draw it on my sketchbook, might draw it on whatever I have. I always have a sketchbook, but go back to the office real quick, scan it, level it out, put it on multiply, just do a quick color pass on it. It takes me 15 minutes. I can take that in the meeting. Maybe I'd shift the colors a couple different ways. And I go, I'm thinking this, you know, and everybody gets it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really handy tool for that. Or if you're doing, I mean, just anything where you're taking a rough drawing and you're coloring it out real quick. I prefer those things. I don't like it when people over clean up their drawings, especially like things that are sketches and stuff like that. Because then I just go, why are you spending so much time on that? I just need the idea, you know? And you need to know that. Like, you have to have a good thumbnailing thing, a good kind of quick sketch thing, because those are your language, those are your tools, right? And when you're communicating your ideas to people, they don't want you to sit there and do a drawing for 4 hours. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They might be paying you work 4 hours on a sketch, and they're like, okay, I just paid you like $1,000 for this sketch. That doesn't make sense, you know? Like, you should have gave me 15 sketches in 4 hours, right? And then with Photoshop, you just multiply it, go underneath it, and just quick. I mean, this thing's starting to come to life, and we haven't done anything, right?
Yeah.
It's all about unifying the shapes, you know? That's where the big part comes in.
Sure.
Okay, so that all makes sense, correct?
Yes, it does.
Another thing, by the way, real quick, I could probably come in here, because I just made a brush right before this. And I could come in here, and, you know, it could be on under the layer. We'll go here. I'm going to go here. Let's go here. And maybe if I take, I don't know, this. Oops. I have to go on top. Oops. I'm going to go here. You know, and I could throw in some texture, maybe. Like, look at that. When I pop a little bit of that warmth in there, like with a spatter brush, that's kind of cool. So a lot of this stuff is just accidents. This transition's too hard now, I'm looking at it. So it's this constant one thing I do love about digital tools is that I can constantly revise and play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So,
you know, like this could get edge lit now. I'm looking at it and going, this little thing could probably get edge lit. Oh. You got to be, you know, sparing with all this stuff. Like maybe that could get a little bit edge lit. The person who did this has already done half my work for me because they've got such a good value system going on here but they've done a lot of my work for me. So now I'm just coming in and going, okay, where's it going to get hot spots? Where's it going to cool off? So on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This whole side of his head, by the way, could probably go cool. And then I like to just like sort of glaze over it a little bit because then some of the warmth is still under there, which is kind of nice. I think I'm going to push this a little bit into cool, you know. And then, you know, on the top layer, I can do things like, you know, if he's got red eyes or anything like that, got to go brighter, whatever, okay? A little too much, I'm going to erase it out. Okay. Does that all make sense? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Now, what we're going to do is now I'm going to start going in. I want to start talking about brushes a little bit, okay? By the way, now I got to do this because it's driving me crazy. I want to find a purple or something in this. Like this is a really bright cyan. Let's try this. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to put it on its own layer. Yeah, I'm just going to go in. That's weird. Hang on. What's going on here? Hang on. That's weird. Oh, I'm in eraser. Okay. So I'm going to come in here. Because I could say that this is more of a blue light, and then if it's coming in and rolling into that warmth, that it's going a little bit purple. Does that make sense? Because it's rolling into that red light. Does that make sense? So I could say that. And here's the other thing. I'm going to take more liberties with something. But see how it pops? How it's starting to pop? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it looks really nice, very artistic. All the contrasting colors are nice.
Now I could come in here and roll through this spectrum and go, is there a better color?
Mm.
You know. But maybe that, and then going saturation, and maybe even lightness a little bit. And we're starting to get that nice, now again, I might come in here and soften this edge, just, oops, it's too much. Soften that, just that edge up a little. I'm leaving one side harder edge and the other side soft edge. I'm going to get this for sure. Now we're starting to pop that nice warm cool thing, right? And I might try and get some of this, by the way, some of this purpley stuff into the shadows. So I'm going to go back up on this a layer over. I'm going to pull the opacity of my brush way down. Maybe it's getting a little bit of that blue in here, or that purpley color. And again, I'm going to make it really subtle. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's,
Okay, so again, if I showed that to a layperson, they'd be like, wow. And it's like, I can do that in 15 minutes, 10 minutes, right? So can you. Well, again, hopefully you see going through that process that this isn't that. The only part of this that you got to know is like, how does the light work and things like that, right?
mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things you should look at that is a designer, illustrator, whatever, make sure that you're going through the world and cataloging things, okay? So like one of the things that you would look at for something like this is when you're someplace with, like, I used to go to jazz every Thursday night to draw and stuff at this place in Temecula. And they had stage lighting, right? It's a very small room, no, tiny room, and piano, stage lighting, right? So you look at it and you go, whoa, look how, that's where I just got this idea from, by the way. They'd light it really hard with this warm light, and then the shadows would go screaming purple. You know, boom, catalog that stuff, make a little note to yourself, you know, and I'd be doing watercolors and stuff in there to capture that idea. And once I do that, then I remember it if I sit there and I paint it or I draw it or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's where that's coming from. Okay. Now look, real quick, and then I'll get on to brushes. Let me see, I'll see if I can find this real quick. Okay, hang on. Hang on. Of course, every time I look into this, it gives me these little tiny images. Okay. I got to do another screen grab, by the way, you guys. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. You see how he's playing warm, cool here? Yeah?
Yeah.
Look at how nothing in that painting is defined, but it looks badass, right?
Mm-hmm.
This figure right here, look at the wings, nothing but silhouette. This is one dark silhouette, and he hit bink, bink with two lights. Boom, boom. Right? Look at this. Nothing in here is defined. I mean, I prefer this kind of painting. It's what I prefer. And what I really love here is this. See how the top of it's catching that cool, and then it gets this warmth underneath? Okay? Warm, cool, warm, cool, warm, cool, warm, cool. It's dramatic. Okay? And then he saturated this whole area with this desaturated blue. You know, it's got a couple of things streaming in from the top, just like we just did with this here. But, you know, the bottom's catching all this warm light, top's catching the cool light. Top's catching the cool light. Why? Because the top is cool, all this light streaming in, and the bottom is getting, look, there's the bottom lit little thing like we just did over there where he's sort of showing sort of a point source of light. And then this all goes silhouette dark, boom, sits in the foreground. But this, look at this. This is one big silhouette with very little shape information. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it does.
And this guy, actually, I used to not like his work. It used to be much stiffer, but it's gotten really painterly now. Do you understand that, by the way, that's painterly looking?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. So I think, now some people, you can show me people who work very tight and looks cool. Doesn't turn me on like that does.
Mm-hmm.
I like painting, but
who was that?
That's this guy. I'll put a link up.
Okay.
It's this guy
Feng
right
Zhu?
here. Feng Zhu, I think. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Oh, okay.
That's him right there. And he's got a lot of this great,
Oh, yeah. Very atmospheric type.
Yeah, really atmospheric. Look at his bottom lip. Like, this is a fun part of it to me is when you start getting into it and you go, ooh, I can put a light source right here. Because when it's this kind of fantastic stuff, look at warm, cool, warm, cool, warm, cool, warm, cool. I mean, it's everywhere. You know what I mean? This one's mostly warm. But then look at in this foreground, he pops these little purples out of here. It's just all over the place. This is a nice one. All this cool, then all this warm, right? And this one, he's doing sort of an atmospheric, sort of dirty atmosphere, right? Warm in the foreground, cool in the background. Anyway, on and on. Or cool, warm, blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And this nice brushwork, you know, this is nice brushwork. If you zoom in on these things, man, there's not a lot of information there, but it's all the information you need, okay? All right, so let's go over here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna expect by, probably by Monday, is for you to go through these ink drawings, or go find your own ink drawing, I don't care, but make sure you go and download one that's big enough. Like I just looked under large and I found those. You wanna use a different one, that's cool. But make sure it has that solid value structure, okay? I wanna use ink right now because I wanna stay there. We'll talk about the other stuff later, like pencil and all that. What was I gonna say? And then this brush thing, okay? So by Monday, we'll get done with that, and then we can move on to this thing I wanna start next week, okay? Let's go, I'll put another layer here and get rid of this one. Okay, so I also put in here, in your folder, oops, wait, did I put it in there? Oh, hang on. I think I left it on my desktop somewhere. Oh, no, wait. Here it is. Okay, so I gave you guys this, correct?
Yes, you did.
Okay, and then I gave you guys, I just gave you this. Again, you can use whatever you want, I don't care. Because we're gonna start our discussion of brushes, because before we can get into other things for next week, we need to start understanding brushes. Okay, so I'm gonna do a couple things here. I'm gonna go through very simple stamp brushes. I'm gonna go through more interactive brushes, or what do you wanna call it. And then I'm gonna give you a link to somebody who's doing something very high end using this simple tool that I showed you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you look at the thing, he's just sort of going over it. But all I want you to see in that is like, oh, I can do that, okay? Because a lot of times, you know, I'm going to make a tutorial, something, and I land on something like, oh, this is perfect, you know? And I'm explaining it to you here so that you don't really have to listen as much to his explanation. Anyway, so let's go here. So I gave you guys this, and then I gave you guys all these. So I'm just gonna do, I don't know, maybe these ones. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go, we're gonna create a quick scene. Let me get rid of him. I'm gonna go, let's start with maybe this. So I'm gonna just go select all, which is Command A. I'm gonna go edit, define brush preset. I'm gonna go oak tree. Now you can see here, it's created a brush, okay? So now I can jump back over here, wherever it is, here it is. And I can go, I'm gonna put this on black. And put a new layer. And I'm gonna go maybe here, maybe a little bigger. Now I've got a tree in my foreground, okay? Now, I don't know if you noticed that, but when I stamp it, it'll go in a little bit transparent, so I can just stamp it a couple times and it'll go more opaque, okay? Then I could come here, let's say this one, and then all, oops, yeah. Edit, define brush preset. Let's call this tree 2. Now I'm gonna go back, wherever it is. And maybe this one's way in the foreground. So more there. I'm going to go to, okay, so I can get rid of this one. I don't care about that anymore. I can get rid of this. I don't care about that anymore. Now let's do this one. I'm going to go Command All, Edit, Define Brush Preset. And I'm going to put this on its own layer. And I'm going to go it's a little too transparent. And I got it full black, so it's a little different. But then I could probably take this and go tilt it a little bit, come down here, and maybe just take, maybe, I'm gonna put this here. You're not gonna barely be able to see this, so I might just take a brush. Let's go smaller. Now I'm gonna do one other thing with this. Let's go here. Maybe I'll just take some of this. There's a bunch of ways I could do this. And I could pull a little bit of this ground cover up. I could even take an eraser. Actually, it might be a better choice. Go to the layer where the tombstone is and just sort of knock some of it out down here. Maybe take a rough eraser and do that. But that's fine. So why? So the grass looks like it's growing up over the bottom. It's not just this hard-edged end, right? Okay.
Right.
I'd probably take a rougher eraser, like, let's see if we can find one. Maybe this. Let's see if we can assign that. Yeah. So let's see what this does. And this is a funky brush, actually. Yeah, that's not bad. See how it's a little more random? Why? Because I want to let the brush do the work, just like I do with real painting. I got this old thrash brush. I can fill it up with fat paint and just drag it across the surface and it looks like leaves, right? It's the same thing you do with real painting. So I'm letting this brush do, this brush is actually pretty good for that. And you can see that's a little better, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I just come in here and you don't have to go any further than that, but I could come in here and start to go, maybe it's some sort of, the reason I use this one is the first time I did this, it was Halloween. So maybe I come in here and I start lighting up this window a little bit with some light. Again, it's a little too streaky for me, so I'm going to knock it back. And then again, I can run through my, see if I like anything better on the overlays. I like that a little better. I don't know if you can see that. On this thing, I have to pull it over when we record it. Okay, so let's go. Screen's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I like that. It's a little more subtle. But then I'm going, I don't know if I like that color, so I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to go through the color spectrum and go, what do I like better? Probably a little more there. And then I could say maybe there's a point source of light here. I'm going to sample this. I'm going to go to my brush. I'm going to sample this color. Go a little more saturated with it. And we start to get a little lit scene, correct?
Yep.
Now, you don't have to do all this. I'm just talking, I know I'm going over things we've done, but I just like to show how you can put them together. The brush part's all I'm really concerned with. But I can go here. I can go here. Again, I'm just going to start with this. You can see I can get all these cool little, like that's kind of cool.
Mm.
Maybe it's a little saturated, so I might desaturate it a little bit. And then I might do the warm cool thing by doing this. And now I'm going to go in here and grab this, maybe. Doesn't matter, I just got to start it. I'm going to make a new layer. Boom. Now I'm going to do the same thing the other way. That's probably good enough. And then all I'm doing is subtly warming up that foreground. So it starts to feel like one of those old sepia tint or one of those tinted photos. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like that. That's kind of cool right there. Right?
Yeah. So I was just with an orange transparency.
I just did that one was overlay. But I have to go through them because I don't really know which one's going to do what, because what color that is and what's underneath it switches the equation a lot, okay?
Right.
So I have to kind of go through them.
Those are all overlays in the layers panel, right? They're all considered overlays, but then what is the overlay in the overlays? Like that's a set that says overlay.
It's just, okay, every one of those blends does a different thing.
Right.
I believe the official term is mode.
Yeah, whatever. They're blends. They're layer blends. The overlay one, just that particular thing is just called overlay. You could probably look it up and it'd probably make more sense like why they named it that.
Yeah.
But to me, the names are all abstract to me. Like multiply, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What multiply means to me, usually, and not always, but usually, is it gets rid of the white for me.
Like
Okay?
saturating. Okay.
Yeah, so you can go through this, and I've done this where I go through and I go, what does overlay do exactly? But I don't remember it. And then I go, well, if I have a cityscape here and I have a red washy background over here, then it's still going to react differently every time because it's dependent on what's in front and what's behind.
Yeah.
So I always have to sort of just try it.
Okay.
I have one more thing I want to go over on that Hellboy thing too. Don't let me forget. Okay, does that all make sense?
Yep.
Now, I don't care if you do the tints and all that stuff. All I care about is that you get the stamp brush thing down, okay?
Okay, I have a question about that. So so those trees are like stamped on.
Yes.
So they're not like a shape you put on there.
I made a brush out of them.
You made a brush out of those shapes.
Now, what this comes in handy for is like what we just did. Like if I was going, let's say I work for Spencer's Gifts, right?
Uh-huh.
And they go, hey, we're going to do a package design and we want like a photo of a creepy old house. This is probably how I do it. Because I'd be like, I don't want to spend over an hour on this thing. You know what I mean? And this would be fine. These are all stock images. So they're all copyright free. They're all high res. Why kill myself over this? And then I put my type in here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The stamper
The what?
to add the trees? You said, so how did you stamped on the brush? So you stamped on the trees. So did you use a stamp tool for that?
Yeah, I just made a stamp brush.
Oh, it's called a stamp brush.
I'm making the brush.
Yeah.
It's not,
okay.
It's a brush, I'm just making it. Just like all these brushes in here, all your standard brushes in your brush palette, they're all made, right? I'm just making my own.
Okay, so do you just click brush, the brush tool, and then?
No, what I just did, where you go define brush.
Define, okay.
You select the whole thing and then define brush preset, and that's it.
Oh, I see.
And then, so now the next part of this comes into brush organization. So in here, I've got my favorite brushes up here, some of them. Here's your general brushes from Photoshop. And then they have wet media brushes. They usually have special effects brushes. I don't know where those are in mine for some reason. This is the one I just gave you guys. You guys all got this, right? This rusty nib thing.
No, I remember seeing that.
It's in announcements.
Okay.
This is a really okay, so what I'm doing is I usually throw all my brushes at you guys all in one fell swoop. But what I realize is that the ones that I was giving everybody, they're all convoluted. Like some of them are grunt brushes, some are this, some are ones I made, some are, you know, and it's like, I'm separating them out now so they're a little more coherent, okay? So you're not going like, wait, you know, so they're a little bit organized. That makes sense? So these are really nice. I just bought these. And I sent you guys a video of, like, you know, the company and what they do and all that. Now, I also want to say this, because I do this because when I was at school, I was broke. When you aren't broke, buy this stuff. Don't bootleg it. That's not cool at all, okay? And it's probably not cool that I'm handing them out, but it's students, and I go, you know, you're on the honor system. When you can afford things, then buy them, okay? But I also want you to have some interesting brushes to use right off the bat, because we're going to start getting more and more into that stuff. Okay, so when I made those brush presets, let's close this. Close this. It put them down here. You see that?
Oh, okay.
Put them at the bottom.
Yeah.
So I could either take these and move them into a different folder, or I could just, you know, select all of them. I think I can right click it. New brush group, and I could just make another folder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I can move these around. So, you know, if I want my smudges to be the first one, I can just move them up and down. I know that sounds really basic and simple, but up until I think 2020, maybe 2019, it was a super hassle to organize your brushes. And you want to get them organized. Like, these are my go-tos right now. And usually this pencil brush thing I always use for drawing in Photoshop because it feels like a fat grease pencil or something. And then whatever illustration or whatever I'm working on, then I might have some special brushes in there for that. Usually it's the same 4 or 5 brushes, and that's about it. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so on this one, okay, so all this, by Monday, I want to get this done, and then what I'm going to talk about right now, okay? Okay, so that's just creating a basic brush, okay? So if I take one of, let's go back here. Let's get rid of the, oh no, let's get rid of that. And close. Let's get rid of this. Get rid of this. Okay. Okay, so if I take one of these, let's say this oak tree brush, and let's shrink it down. And let's go up here. Let's go to black. That's what it's going to do now if I use it as a brush. Sometimes you get a really nice just drawing brush out of that. Like, you know, even if I go bigger, you can you guys see it's basically repeating that shape?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So sometimes that can be nice if you're using it smaller. It could get a nice little edge thing. Like this, one of that favorite drawing brush of mine, I think, is like a little feather shape. But this is what we're going to want to be able to do. So let's look at this. So now we're going to go a little further with this. So I'm going to make a single hair brush. So let's go. Let's just use this, that. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go select it, edit, define. All define brush preset means is make this a brush, okay? And I'm going to go fur and say, okay. Okay, so now we have that brush. I'm going to delete that. I don't need it anymore. And now I have this. Okay? Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here. It's up here. Now I have it here, I think. Yeah, brush settings right here. But it lives, like all our palettes, it lives under Windows. So brush settings. There it is, okay? Now the first setting I have here, I can affect the direction. Like right there is kind of nice. but I'm not going to do that yet. So what I want to do here now is start to make this a little more interesting brush. So here's the spacing, okay? So you come in here, and if I pull this apart, see how it spaces it apart?
Oh, right.
Okay? I don't think I want to, well, let's just leave it there for now. Maybe a little less. Let's put it there. Now I'm going to go to shape dynamics, the next one, and when the jitter means, see how it randomizes a little bit? Some of them are now smaller, shorter and smaller. And then let's go to angle jitter. So now this is randomizing, okay? So now it's getting a little more random. Now, another thing I want to do, so there's some other things you can play with in here, but I'm not worried about those. I want to go to scattering, and I want to scatter these, and then go, how many do I want? Do I want it really scattered together? And then I'm going to go, I like to do transfer right here. So if you notice, transfer made it fade out on either side. So now as I push my brush, it gets lighter and darker, okay? And then I'm going to go, there's some other things in here you can play with. I'm going to go back to scattering. Let's go here. That's more of a scatter there. Now, let's go back here. And I'm going to go, I'm going to go a little tighter on it. Yeah. Now, does that all make sense?
Yep.
But what we want to do now is go to the shape dynamics. And right here, the middle one, right here, is control. I'm going to go direction. Okay? So now it's following my hand. Do you guys see that? That's super important. Okay? Because what you can start to do, start this one over. So let's get rid of the. Now, it probably, now see, it didn't save it, so which is good for me. There it is. So I want to go back to, I want to reset this again. And I want to go to, let's see, let's go to the first one. I want to get this to go, I'm going to flip this. Maybe get a little tighter on it. And then I'm going to go back to my shape dynamics and make sure direction's on. And I can start to create, if I was creating a creature or something, I could create all this fur and stuff. I'd have to flip the, when I go to the other side, I'd have to flip the axis on it, which is down here. Which, let's see. And it flips it. You have to play with it. The video I'm going to show you, that I'm going to send you guys. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this. So fur is one. The reason I'm showing you that is the video I'm going to send you is this guy who does, he works at DreamWorks or whatever, and he used it on some of the character design for that. But let's go here now. Let's go back to here. Oh, by the way, if you want to save that, you got to go new brush preset for one. It should be in here now. Yeah, here it is. If you notice, I didn't save it before, and it just saved the original stamp brush, okay? But I have to save all those settings I did in the brush settings thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now I just want that one. You know, this one I did right before class. So this is more of a little scattery idea. But I might go, let's go back here. Let's go to, oops. Now let's go and make, you got to play with these. I love playing with these because it's kind of fun. I'm just gonna make one for now. And edit, find brush preset, I'm gonna say scale. Back over here now. Here's what I'm gonna get. Make sense?
What? Looks like a slinky.
Right. So if I did need to do that, right, put some stairs and have it going ding, 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 ding. Okay, but that's not what I want. So I want to go here, again, back up to my brush tip shape, which I think is fine. Size is fine. Spacing, I want to space them out a little bit. So let's try it there. I'm going to go to Shape Dynamics. Let's make it the control right here in the center. Direction. You can't really tell now because it's all more or less a circle. I'm going to go to Scattering, or Shape Dynamics, I'm sorry. And I'm going to go size of the jitter. That's going to random it up a little bit. Angle jitter, that's going to random. See how that's making it more random? Because I want it a little more random.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go to, let's see what else. Let's go to Scattering. And I'm going to go Scatter is a little more random. There it is. Let's really pull it out maybe there. How many do I want? Do I want it thick, or it just depends on what you want? Jitter count. That really randomized a little bit. I don't want it there. I think I want it here. And I want to do my transfer, fade it off. So if I scattered these out a little more, let's do this. Move them out a little bit, and then I want to go to, I want to pull them apart a little bit. There. I want them where they're not touching. Yeah, a little more random. So I could pull them, you know, a little bit more where they're not touching, but this is fine for now. And what could I use that for? If I turned it, let's get rid of this. I could go back here, really light, and then I could go bigger. That's too big, hang on. I could get a little bigger here. And if I was doing, I could go to my, if I was doing a cobblestone road, I could go to my edit transform. Oh, hang on, I'm not on the right layer. Oh, I'm on the right layer. And go perspective. Pull it out. I could start using it for a cobblestone street. I could use this for scales on the side of a dragon. I could use it for random texture. I could use it for all kinds of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I make brushes all the time for like random texture. I made for this one. I think I have it. Hang on. This is a big illustration I had to do for my girlfriend's brewery. And when I do this, a lot of these leaves and stuff like that are just brushes that I scattered all those leaves in and then just reshaped them and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And by the way, the beauty of this is it's not a big leap now to go to, you know, a winter version of this. And then it's not a big leap to go to, hang on. Like a little online Christmas card idea. Okay? So again, all parts of the buffalo. I made one, I go, hey, we're going into the holidays. I do a snow scene of it, which I just start with the original one and just start painting snow over it and change the light a little bit. And then I go, oh, I can put an overlay over that and fade the thing in, and you got a social media thing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is why I'm telling you, learn overlap, because then I can go, oh, I know how to do that in Premiere. I can do that. And it just gives you a nice little holiday thing, right?
Yeah.
And then they also, by the way, use that they print them on wood. Their gift cards are on wood, and it's that first illustration, right? And then that roof, or that first one, the regular summer one, that was printed 9 or 10 feet wide for a brewery event. So how many different things? You got a big banner out of it, you got gift cards out of it, you got a social media thing out of it, and you got a snow scene out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Where's Lou and Eddie's? Because I know there's one in Lake Arrowhead that we went to.
That's it. That's it.
That's it. Oh, that's so funny. They're really good.
That's great.
Pizza? Yeah.
Okay, does all that make sense? Yes.
It does. So my bubbles, right?
Huh?
You can make bubbles, right? A bubble brush.
Make anything.
That's cool.
It's very useful for, I mean, all kinds of stuff. Okay. You got to get in there. The key to it for this particular, like doing the fur or whatever, is that you got to make sure that direction's on so it'll follow your hand. Okay. Now, I don't know how much it'll do that with a mouse. I'm not sure. It probably does, I guess. These things are pressure sensitive, so I'm on a screen. Again, so if I come in here, I can lean on it a little bit. It gets darker, gets lighter, all that kind of stuff, okay? But you can go through that process. Again, anybody who's going through this program or whatever, and again, I think these Cintiqs are super overpriced personally, but like one of those little tabletop Intuos ones, which is also made by Wacom. I mean, I have one that's that big, and I keep it in my travel bag all the time, my computer travel bag. And I use that thing for, I used one of those until it finally wore out. It took forever. And I liked it, you know, but they just sit on your tabletop. They're like 79 to 99 bucks, okay? And it'll get you through all this stuff. Make sense?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's where I would start at. And I've had people where they go, well, I have to draw right on the screen, because if I draw with the pad here, I disconnect. I don't have that problem, right? I mean, it's like you're drawing right here and it's right there. I mean, and some people have that disconnect, that's fine. I don't think that many people do. I think a lot of people are just obsessed with Cintiqs and hardware. I feel like it's an extension of video game culture, but that's a whole different thing. But and then the one other thing I want to say, so all that makes sense, correct?
It does, right. It just takes time to build those things.
Sure. It makes, what I'm trying to do is to hopefully this is all making sense to you, because again, when I learned Photoshop, I think Photoshop has its own logic. It does have its own logic. And when I was looking at it, I'm going, I just don't get this. You know what I mean? Because they would go, well, yeah, the foreground background swatch. And I'm like, well, why? What does that mean? Well, you want to fill it with the background color. And I'm like, you're not explaining to me what it means. Like, I need to know what it means, you know? That's just the way my brain works. But on this other one that we started, if you wanted to come over this, and this would be kind of a weird thing to do. Well, we could do it here. Let's do it under our ink drawing. I'm going to put a layer here and go shadow. This is just one way you can do this. And I'm going to go over here. So I just put another layer over my color under the ink drawing. And then I'm going to go here. And I'm going to grab a mid-value gray. I'm going to go to my grayscale. I'm going to grab maybe here. Might need to go a little darker, and that's all right. Let's get rid of that. And then I want to put this layer on multiply. And now I'm going to go, well, what? Maybe I want a secondary shadow in here. So I'm going to, actually, let's just do this. Let's not put it on multiply yet. Let's put it on normal. Oops. Put it on normal. And I'm going to get my brush. And let's say I wanted another value right here. I'm going, I want to have, and you probably wouldn't do this on this, but maybe a shadow value here. And when I go up here and I put this on multiply, that shadow value now, or that gray that was sitting there became a shadow value. Do you see that right here? You see it?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just on a mid-value gray on multiply, and it'll just automatically sort of adapt to the color underneath it. So I don't have to go find all the shadow values, because normally I would come in here and maybe pick this and then go here and maybe darken it a little bit. And I'd have to do that for every color.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's on multiply. That's why it's doing a weird thing. Or I can, you know, I might just do a black or a gray thing, and it just assumes a color underneath, and it's just a lot faster. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So another thing you can do with that multiply thing. And then, you know, I could come in here and go, so let's look at this real quick. I know I'm going on and on, but let's look at this. It's another thing. I'm going to go back to this pencil sketch again. Now, this is still pulled apart, so I'm going to go Command E and flatten all this. Then I'm going to go, this is a little off balance. I'm going to tweak it that way. And then I'm going to go C to my crop tool, and I'm going to crop this so it doesn't look all funky. Let's crop it way in like that. And then it's a little light value, so I'm going to pull it down a little bit. That's good enough. And then I'm going to go, I made these brushes earlier. These are just stamp brushes, okay? Let's go to brush. And I put them in here. Temple foliage, right? So I'm going to come here and go, where did we go? Let's go, here's an overhanging. So I could quickly come in here and go, and start to put some foreground foliage in this thing. Let's see what this one looks like. And start to build this. This one's kind of cool. Just grass texture. Let's go big.
My question, how are you able to darken the color of those stamps? Or
I'm just hitting them more than once.
Okay.
So if you look, watch. That's once.
And you're doing that with the pad, correct?
Now this I'm just doing with the mouse.
Okay.
Now this one's directional. That's why it's not just letting me stamp it. So this one, if you see, it's more directional. Because it'd be better for, like, you know, adding that kind of stuff in. And I could go, your scattered leaves. It's too big. You know, and what I would really do with like scattered leaves is I would do a big, hang on. Oh, this is on multiply too. That screws me up. Hang on. Yeah, that's good. You know, and I'd probably scatter this out a little more. Normally what I would do with something like leaves like that is I would do a mass shape, just a mass brushy shape. Then I'd just do it around the edges and things like that, okay? Let's see if I have any other ones in here. Let's see what this one is. That's that one. This is vertical too. Okay, this is, I don't know if that's that one or not. Now another thing I can do is I could come in here and go, okay, these are the same. I want to put this on its own layer. These are the same, so I want to put this one here. And then I'm going to go, I don't know, maybe I'll come here and go edit, transform, and go to warp. And maybe, you know, bend it around a little bit so it feels like a different plant. That makes sense. Maybe a little more like that.
Yeah, you're adding.
So it feels a little different. You know, I might even, in this case, I kind of like them going in the same direction, but I might just go up here and go edit, transform, flip horizontal. You know, maybe this one comes over here. You know, and I could start building a scene that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, the trick here is this a fairly just straightforward drawing? I just did it for a demo real quick. So these plant shapes work in this because they're fairly straightforward, okay? If this was super stylized, like a cartoony background, I couldn't use these stamp tools because they wouldn't fit right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like when I did that Luetti's illustration, I made my own leaf brushes, my own tree brushes, all my own stuff based on my quick drawings and things like that. And then they fit into my environment, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I might do if I was doing an illustration, I did. I have a folder where I'm just making brushes because you've seen it. It just takes a few minutes to make them. And I've got 6 or 7 brushes in there where I can go and just put a bunch of leaves, you know, dance them around and kind of reshape them a little bit. And man, it's so much faster. Okay. And by the way, the cloud, I think it has clouds. Hang on. Oh. These clouds back here were done the same way we did that flame and the same way we did that smoke. Does that make sense? Okay, big shape, kind of the gray values on the bottom, a little bit of warmth, come in and soften some edges, change up the edges a little bit, boom. Same thing as the smoke, same thing as the fire, same thing as the clouds. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want you to start seeing is like these things, again, when I go, here's how you do a flame, or here's how you do a cloud, or here's how you do a smoke, or whatever. It's not about smoke, it's not about flame, and it's not about clouds. It's about that idea of big silhouette, big shapes inside the silhouette, soften them, you know, change up those edges, and boom, you're done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's going to work for all kinds of things. It might be steam coming out of a coffee cup. It might be, you know, all those sort of organic-y shapes like that. And again, you don't want to do it like I saw somebody doing it today or yesterday, whatever it was, with rocks, where I'm going, those don't look like rocks. You know what I mean? That's not how you do that, you know? And everybody has different ways of doing it, but I get really worried about tricks, okay, where you don't know how to go, okay, that's a good trick for doing quick silhouette and stuff like that, but that doesn't work for what you're trying to use it for, okay?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So I'm going to hammer you with this right tool for the right job. That's why we're learning a handful of tools, and then we go do something with it, okay? So right now we're getting into brushes, okay? And I'm going to link a video of Paula Sane doing a fur texture thing, and it's just what I just showed you, okay? And the key to that is that little middle thing, when it'll be on the Zoom conversation, that middle thing where I drop it down and hit direction, okay? That way it'll follow my hand. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then the stamp brushes are a different thing. That's like, you know, works for this kind of thing. I don't know if I have one. Like I've done, like on this one, if I did a night view of this, I'd probably do a stamp brush of a big moon back there, right? That would eat up that space at night really nicely, okay? Does that make sense? And I don't need to draw that, you know, it's just, you know, look, here's the other thing. There's 2 ways of thinking of this. Like if I'm doing an illustration, I'm probably not going to do all the stamp brush stuff. I'm going to paint it, okay? Like that Luetti's one where it's all my own hand doing it. If it's a concept thing or a design thing, I'm going to use every trick in the book, okay? Because all it's about is getting the idea visually across to somebody, okay? And I'm going to use, and then it becomes a little less artistic. It's more about just like, oh, I get it. You're seeing like this Japanese temple lit at night, and I do all the lighting, and yeah, I'm thinking of this, and it has some clouds, you know, whatever. It'd be all about vibe and all that. I went to a show, actually, I think it was the Carter Goodrich show. So I went to see Carter Goodrich show, and they had like some Spider-Verse, I think it was concept art from the Into the Spider-Verse there. And I understand why, and my question is if you guys are, if people go see that, if they're fans of that as an illustration, or if they're fans of that as the product of a design process. Because I get it as a product of a design process. I don't get it at all as an illustration, because to be honest with you, they're not that interesting looking. They get the point across to the director, but they look very cut and paste. They look very sort of photo bashed together. And that's a design process thing, and that's totally fine. But like, I can't really look at that the way I look at a painting and just go, okay, it conveys that information. I don't think it's very interesting. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I think it's interesting as a design process. I don't think it's interesting as an illustration or a painting. To me, that's a different thing. And the thing, the beauty of that is that now you can go explore like crazy that way. And all those things are great. You know, photo bashing, cutting and pasting, all that stuff they're doing to make that happen. Then they're kind of painting into it and all that kind of stuff. That's like, they've got crazy deadlines. They've got a meeting with whoever the director is. So this guy I used to go to school with, or this guy I went to the art center with, you know, he works on everything. Ryan Church, right? He's a huge thing. But like, he's working with like Lucas and guys like this. So, you know, 3 o'clock, we got a meeting with George Lucas about the new Star Wars movie, and you got to put your stuff up in there, man. That's nerve wracking. Like, and then, you know, they've got 4 or 5 of these things they knocked out that day. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's where all those lasso tool, photo bashing, blah, blah, blah. That's where all that stuff comes in. And those tools are great because you got to get it done. And who cares how you get it done as long as it conveys the idea, because that's what that's all about. It's the design and the idea. If somebody calls you up and goes, hey, why don't you do a book cover? I don't want it to look like that. That's not going to fly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want it to look like an illustration. I don't want it to look, I want to look like a painting, an illustration. I don't want it to look like some design thing. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay. So anyway, I just always point that out because I think it's important. Questions?
Okay, I have a question. I still can't find the link for the video on the channel mixers. I looked at all the links, like from like the 18th.
For which one is it?
The video about dealing with the channels. I think you gave us a haystack image, and I still don't know what with that.
Do you guys all get that?
The image or the video?
No, I want to make sure they got the video.
No, I didn't see it anywhere.
Elan,
Yes, Mike.
did you get that video?
Is the video one of the class videos? Because you did briefly mention some channels in that one, but I'm not sure if it was like,
Well, we did.
the video you were talking about was like a whole
We did
video on
channel
channels.
remember?
What is it, Mike?
We did channel selections, remember?
I think you briefly mentioned that. Is that with the Hellboy demonstration?
No.
Or is it with the haystack one?
Let me make sure. Yeah, the haystack one.
You briefly mentioned that one. I'm not sure if you did it with the haystack one though, because the haystack, I remember you did the lens flare demonstration, but
Yeah. Hang on. I know I put it up because we talked about it. Oh, that's something else. Can't remember what day that was.
I think it was like Monday.
Yeah, it was either yesterday or Monday.
But did you guys get that?
No, there's no video up there about it.
I asked you guys about it, and I said, did you guys understand that channel thing? And everybody said yes. So that's a little disturbing. Okay. It's after this. I know I put it up. I remember putting it up. All right, let me find it. It's not this one. Hang on. Let's go. Oh, I got saving tomorrow. Oh, I see what's going. Wait. That can't be it. Let me see what this is real quick. And the reason is, I think I might have, okay. I have to go through it. I thought I put the problem for me is that everybody said they got that. So that's what's making me nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let me double check it after class.
Okay.
And then if we, if I didn't put it up, which would be weird, but I might not have, because I'm pretty sure it was with this one. So you might be right. Hang on. Yeah. You might be right. I'm a little bothered that everybody said they got the channel thing if they didn't see it. All right, I'll double check that. Go ahead.
Using channels in Photoshop.
Yeah, it was a channels video. But anyway, I'll double check. And if I didn't put it up there, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go through that first and then jump to this stuff we talked about. Does that make sense? Yes?
Okay. Yes.
Because you have to know channel selections. You have to know it. It's like you have to know the pen tool and all that stuff, okay? Have to know channel selection. So I want to make sure, I'm going to go through there and make sure I didn't put it up. And then I want to have a discussion around that tomorrow. And then we can start going back into this stuff again, okay? Because I'm going to have this stuff put away by Monday, okay?
Okay.
Yeah?
You're going to post it then, Mike?
What's that?
You're going to post it then?
Yeah, I'm going to go through there and make sure that I didn't post it. And if I didn't, I'll put it up right after this.
Great. Okay. Great.
And I want you to look at that first.
Okay.
And then we can, we got a little breathing room on the brushes. I don't think you guys will have that much problems with it. So tomorrow, if we haven't talked about the channel, if I screwed up and didn't put it up, which looks like I didn't, I'll make sure, I want you to look at that first. And then start looking at this stuff and start working through this, okay? Make your stamp brushes. Again, the thing is that I always thought was weird about the brush making thing is that I could, in class, a digital drawing or whatever, I go, okay, we're gonna start talking about drawings or talking about making brushes. Everybody goes, oh, everybody gets all excited. And I'm like, making a brush, like those stamp brushes, all you do is just make a selection around it and go define brush pieces. I mean, that's it. And name it. And then put it where you want it, right? I mean, that's all there is to that. Now, starting to make them reactive and all that stuff, that's a little different. But that's still, you can see, you just got to go through and start playing with those things, okay?
That's the question they have to ask.
Who am I getting? All right, do I have any other questions?
So is there anything due for tomorrow or
No.
just learn? Okay.
I want you to play.
All right.
But if I miss channels, which it looks like I did, I want you to go to that first, and then go to stamp brush, and then go to reactive brushes. I'm still going to put, I'm going to put all, obviously I'll put this up right after, but I'm also going to put a link to that tutorial of him using reactive brushes to paint a character, and I will relink the channels thing because I think I know it because I can see on the day where I put it that's there, and I think I put the file in there for that discussion. But it looks like I didn't link the video, which is super weird. But anyway, it should be, it's fine. Oh, and I also want you to paint that ink, one of those ink drawings, okay? What was I gonna say? And you have till like Monday or whatever, so just, it's casual, okay? Because I want you to absorb these things and make sure that we're absorbing everything. I think we're fine on schedule. I've been looking at the calendar and I think we're fine. And then next week, I want to get into some kind of heavier stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes, it does.
Oh wait, I gotta take a screenshot. Hang on. I'm missing some people in here. I'm missing 2 people. Looking through your stuff. Okay. Okay. Let me do this. Again, I think I'm only missing 1 poster. I have no idea if that person's still hanging on. Hang on. Oh, another thing I noticed when I was looking hang on at I was looking at the grade book because I was grading the posters. It looks like I didn't grade the camera exercise. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in my folder and find those, and I'll just grade them. Okay.
Sounds good.
So that might be like if you guys are getting anything that says you're missing, that's me, not you. Okay.
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 That thing's an exercise, so I can throw 10 points at it pretty easily. Now I've got 13 in here. How are people going in and out like that? I don't get that. Okay, so we got channels first. The Hellboy, oh, you only have to use Hellboy, whatever one you want to use. Or if you want to find one, that's fine. Painting the comic book looking thing. Stamp brushes, and then we move into reactive brushes. Don't get overwhelmed with any of that if it is, because we're going to talk about it tomorrow, and I'll go over things you're having problems with that tomorrow. So I'm going to do the usual thing tomorrow for the link today or whatever. I'll put a work folder there, so anything we want to discuss, you're going to pop it in there, right? Nothing's due, but I do want you to pop things in there that you're having problems with. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, I keep getting this thing bouncing back and forth with how many people are in here.
I got kicked and just came back. Sorry. My computer crashed.
That's it for you then. And John, don't forget to put your posters in there.
I did. I just did it while we were in class.
You put them in there. I don't know where I put them.
No worries. I redid it right
It's
now.
weird though because I'm super organized. I have one folder for every single day. It has my video file in it so I can edit right afterwards. It has my attendance folder. It has, you know, everything. Today folder, which is all the stuff I'm going over that day. It's and all the work is in there. So I don't know. It's weird. I must have, anyway. I know you did it on time, so it's fine. Anybody, okay. And there, so everybody knows what we're doing, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we got a lot of stuff to digest by Monday. Okay. I always think like it's so complicated, and you guys usually come back and go, "Yeah, it's fine, I get it." Okay, because then Monday we can start moving into some sort of image creation-y stuff. There's a bunch of stuff I'm really excited to get to. You know, and then and so on and so forth, right? Also, if you guys are seeing cool work, or if you're seeing things you're going, how they do that, start collecting that stuff in a folder so we can talk about it, okay? Or like further on down the line, we start doing more complex projects, you might go, I want to do something kind of like that, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
And always let me know, you know, when we're having these discussions, always tell me what you're doing. Like, hey, I'm a graphic designer, but I want to be able to do this. Hey, I'm a whatever. I don't care what it is, okay? Because I really do like to know what everybody's kind of goal is and where they're trying to go, okay? And I'm trying to keep this base and fundamental enough where you can apply it to almost anything. But I still like to know what you guys are, what your goals are, okay? Okay. If we don't go to Palm Springs tomorrow, I'm going to go to that thing. Yeah?
Sounds cool.
All right. All right, you guys, and I'll see you in the morning.
See you.
Thanks, Mike. See
Thank you, guys. You're doing a good job, by the way.
you.